Rising beside the waters of Marina Bay, surrounded by steel towers and one of the most advanced skylines on Earth, stands a project that looks less like a public garden and more like a vision pulled directly from the future. Massive glass domes stretch across the waterfront like gigantic crystal shells. Towering artificial trees rise into the sky covered in steel, plants, and hidden environmental systems. At night, the entire landscape transforms into a glowing futuristic city, unlike anything most people have ever seen before. This is Gardens by the Bay. But what most visitors never realize is that this entire location once did not even exist. Before the giant conservatories, before the super trees, and before millions of tourists arrived every year, this area was little more than reclaimed coastline and a massive construction zone built directly on unstable marine soil. And yet, over the course of several years and more than $1 billion in investment, Singapore transformed this artificial land into one of the most ambitious urban megaprojects ever attempted. Today, Gardens by the Bay is not simply a tourist destination. It is a gigantic engineering experiment, a symbol of future city design, and one of the clearest examples of how technology, architecture, and environmental engineering are beginning to merge together into a completely new model of urban development. In this documentary, Megabuild HQ takes you deep inside the construction of Singapore's futuristic mega garden to reveal how engineers built gigantic glass domes, artificial super trees, and one of the most advanced urban ecosystems ever created. Located directly beside Marina Bay, in the center of Singapore's financial district, Gardens by the Bay covers more than 100 hectares of land and contains over 1 million plant species gathered from around the world. But the true importance of this project goes far beyond landscaping. Singapore is one of the most densely developed nations on Earth. Land is extremely limited, natural resources are scarce, and nearly every square meter of the city must be carefully planned and engineered. For decades, Singapore faced a difficult challenge. How could a hyper-modern financial city continue expanding while still maintaining environmental balance and quality of life for millions of residents? Instead of separating nature from the city, Singapore chose a completely different approach. It decided to integrate nature directly into the urban system itself. Gardens by the Bay became one of the largest examples of this vision. The project was designed not only as a recreational space, but also as an environmental system capable of cooling surrounding areas, supporting biodiversity, improving tourism, and reinforcing Singapore's identity as a futuristic global city. Every section of the garden was planned with long-term urban strategy in mind. The pathways, climate systems, artificial lakes, elevated walkways, conservatories, and super trees were all engineered to function together as a unified ecosystem. And creating that ecosystem required construction methods far more advanced than most people realize. Among the most iconic structures inside Gardens by the Bay are the gigantic climate-controlled conservatories known as the Flower Dome and the Cloud Forest. These massive glass structures are among the largest glass greenhouses ever built. But constructing them beside Singapore's tropical coastline presented enormous engineering challenges. Singapore experiences high humidity, strong sunlight, heavy rainfall, and powerful tropical storms throughout the year. And yet, the conservatories needed to maintain stable internal climates suitable for plant species imported from cooler regions like Europe, South Africa, and Australia. To achieve this, engineers designed a gigantic steel grid shell system capable of supporting thousands of glass panels while remaining lightweight enough to reduce structural stress. The entire dome structure was reinforced using curved steel arches that absorb wind forces and distribute loads across the roof. Instead of relying on thick concrete walls, the domes use a skeletal steel system that allows massive open interior spaces without obstructing views. Every steel component was fabricated off-site using precision engineering technology. The sections were measured, welded, and tested inside factories before being transported to the construction site under carefully controlled conditions. Because of their enormous size, the roof structures had to be divided into multiple transportable sections. Once delivered, giant cranes slowly lifted the steel components into the air, where workers assembled them piece by piece hundreds of feet above the ground. After the steel framework was completed, engineers began installing gigantic tempered glass panels. Specialized vacuum lifting systems were used to prevent vibration and minimize the risk of cracking. Even a tiny alignment error could compromise the entire structure. Every panel had to fit with extreme precision. And once the final section was installed, the result was extraordinary. A gigantic climate-controlled ecosystem hidden inside one of the largest glass greenhouses ever engineered.
While the glass domes became the centerpiece of the project during the daytime, another structure would eventually become the defining symbol of Gardens by the Bay after sunset: the Super Tree Grove. Standing between 25 and 50 meters tall, these artificial trees appear almost alien against the Singapore skyline. But beneath their futuristic appearance lies a highly advanced structural engineering system. Each super tree contains a reinforced concrete base connected to a massive steel core hidden inside the trunk. This steel column acts as the primary load-bearing structure capable of supporting the enormous canopy above while resisting wind forces from the nearby coastline. Engineers first constructed the deep foundations before transporting giant precast concrete sections to the site. These sections form the outer trunk structure and were assembled using heavy cranes with extremely precise alignment. Once the outer structure was completed, workers installed the internal steel framework. The upper canopy sections were then attached to create the branching appearance of the artificial trees. But the super trees are not purely decorative. Many of them contain environmental technologies integrated directly into the structure. Some collect solar energy. Others help support ventilation systems inside the conservatories. Several are designed to capture rainwater and redistribute it throughout parts of the garden. In many ways, the super trees function like giant environmental machines disguised as futuristic sculptures. And at night, when thousands of lights illuminate the steel canopies, the entire grove transforms into one of the most recognizable urban landscapes in the world.
Long before the conservatories and super trees began rising into the skyline, engineers faced a much more fundamental problem: the land itself. Gardens by the Bay was not built on natural ground. The entire project stands on reclaimed land created beside Marina Bay. Creating artificial land on this scale is an enormous engineering challenge, requiring detailed calculations involving seabed stability, ocean currents, long-term settlement, and environmental impact. Traditional reclamation methods often rely heavily on enormous quantities of imported sand. But for this project, engineers also used massive reinforced concrete caissons to help stabilize sections of the reclaimed coastline. These gigantic hollow concrete structures were constructed off-site before being floated into position at sea. Once aligned correctly, the caissons were carefully lowered onto prepared seabed foundations, where they acted as giant retaining walls. After installation, the structures were filled with rock, gravel, and additional materials to create stable platforms for future development. This process allowed engineers to gradually expand Singapore's usable land area while maintaining greater structural control over the newly created coastline. But reclaiming the land was only the beginning, because underneath the surface, another major problem was waiting: soft marine clay. Marine clay is one of the most difficult soil conditions for large-scale construction. It is weak, unstable, and highly vulnerable to long-term settlement, and beneath Gardens by the Bay, some sections of soft marine sediment extended more than 60 meters deep. Without proper stabilization, the weight of the conservatories and super trees could eventually cause dangerous movement or structural failure. To solve this, engineers implemented an extensive deep foundation system using cast-in-place concrete piles plunge. The process began with giant drilling rigs boring through the weak soil layers until they reached stronger geological material below. Massive steel reinforcement cages were then lowered into the holes before high-strength concrete was poured into place. These piles transferred the enormous weight of the structures deep underground into more stable layers capable of supporting long-term loads. Thousands of tons of force would eventually move through these hidden foundations every single day. At the same time, construction near Marina Bay introduced another challenge: protecting the surrounding water supply. The bay plays an important role in Singapore's water management system, meaning pollution from construction activity had to be tightly controlled. Engineers installed specialized retaining barriers and sediment control systems designed to prevent soil and debris from spreading into the surrounding water. This level of environmental control became one of the defining characteristics of the project. Every major engineering decision had to balance construction efficiency with long-term environmental sustainability. Once construction of the major structures was complete, Gardens by the Bay began transforming from a giant construction zone into a functioning artificial ecosystem. Inside the conservatories, visitors entered completely different climate zones designed to recreate environments from across the world. The Flower Dome features dry Mediterranean and semi-arid climates filled with rare plants that would normally struggle to survive in Singapore's tropical humidity. Meanwhile, the Cloud Forest contains a cool mountain environment built around one of the world's tallest indoor waterfalls. Every pathway, staircase, viewing platform, and lighting system was carefully designed to guide visitors through the environment in a cinematic way. The experience feels less like walking through a greenhouse and more like moving through a futuristic nature simulation. Engineers also integrated sophisticated cooling systems hidden beneath the structure. Instead of cooling the entire building uniformly, the conservatories use targeted environmental control systems that focus cooling near occupied areas while optimizing energy efficiency. This approach dramatically reduces power consumption while maintaining stable conditions for delicate plant species. And as millions of visitors move through the gardens every year, the entire system continues operating with remarkable precision.
During the daytime, Gardens by the Bay already appears futuristic. But at night, the project transforms completely. As darkness falls over Marina Bay, thousands of lights begin illuminating the Super Tree Grove. The steel canopies glow with shifting colors while music echoes across the elevated walkways below. What was once a garden now feels more like a science fiction city. This nighttime transformation was not added simply for entertainment. It was part of the original urban design philosophy. Singapore wanted Gardens by the Bay to function as a 24-hour landmark capable of reshaping the city's global identity. The lighting systems were carefully integrated into the structures during construction. Advanced electrical networks, maintenance systems, and energy management infrastructure were all hidden within the super trees themselves. Even the elevated OCBC Skyway was designed to provide cinematic nighttime views across Marina Bay and the Singapore skyline. The result is one of the most visually recognizable urban environments in the modern world. And that visual identity would eventually become incredibly valuable.
As urban populations continue increasing across the planet, cities are facing enormous pressure. Land is becoming more limited. Temperatures are rising. And traditional urban development models are struggling to adapt. Because of this, Gardens by the Bay has become more than just a national landmark. It has become a global case study. Cities across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East are now exploring similar approaches that integrate environmental systems directly into urban infrastructure. Instead of treating green spaces as decorative additions, future developments are beginning to treat them as functional parts of the city itself. Advanced drainage systems, biodiversity zones, urban cooling strategies, renewable energy integration, and smart environmental monitoring are all becoming increasingly important. Projects inspired by this model are now appearing in places like China, the United Arab Emirates, and Vietnam. The idea is simple but powerful. Future cities may no longer separate nature from technology. Instead, the two may eventually merge together into unified systems capable of supporting both environmental sustainability and large-scale urban growth. Gardens by the Bay became one of the earliest and most visible examples of this transition. Since opening to the public, Gardens by the Bay has evolved into one of Singapore's most important global attractions. Every year, millions of international visitors travel to Marina Bay to experience the project firsthand. The gardens generate enormous economic impact across tourism, hospitality, transportation, retail, and surrounding real estate development. Property values throughout the Marina Bay district increased significantly as the area transformed into one of Singapore's most recognizable urban destinations. But perhaps the project's greatest achievement is not financial. It is psychological. Gardens by the Bay changed how cities think about nature. For decades, urban expansion and environmental preservation were often treated as opposing forces. But this project demonstrated that large-scale development and ecological integration could potentially exist together. What began as reclaimed coastline eventually became one of the most ambitious environmental megaprojects ever built inside a modern city. And standing beneath the glowing super trees at night, surrounded by glass domes, artificial waterfalls, and futuristic skylines, it becomes clear that Gardens by the Bay is not simply a park. It is a prototype, a glimpse into how future megacities may eventually be designed. A world where engineering, architecture, technology, and nature no longer compete against each other, but evolve together. This is not just Singapore's garden. It may be one of the first true cities of the future. And for MegaBuild HQ, this is only the beginning.